Don't Worry Darling is directed by Olivia Wilde and stars Harry Styles, Florence Pugh, Chris Pine, and plenty of other big names that you've likely heard of. A 1950s housewife living with her husband in a utopian experimental community begins to worry that his glamorous company could be hiding disturbing secrets, which is the synopsis that gives off what feels like a period piece about a cult that is slowly growing in power in this strange new world. And unfortunately, this movie is all sizzle around that idea, but no steak. So if I describe my experience with this movie in one sentence, it would be, Don't Worry Darling showcases the promise of a really intense psychological thriller, but it keeps you waiting for far too long for a conclusion that's ultimately unfulfilling and unsatisfying. And to be candid, this felt like the longest 2 hours, 5 minutes I've ever sat through in a movie. This movie honestly felt more like 3 hours and 30 minutes, but I'll get to that in just a second. It's just, other than star power, this movie had very little to offer. So let me start off with what I really enjoyed about this movie. Don't Worry Darling certainly has its star power and knows how to leverage it quite well. There's not one bad performance that I found in this movie, and the leads of Florence Pugh and Harry Styles really elevate the experience and make it worth watching, but they can only carry that burden so far because this movie, I had a really hard time sitting all the way through to the very end. Having said that, those two leads performing well as a lot of the side characters, including the likes of Chris Pine, Olivia Wilde, who directs the entire experience as well as stars in it, they all work well together in tandem, and it really feels as though that their performances could give this movie a chance, but ultimately can't get it past the finish line. And out of everyone, I gotta say that Florence Pugh is obviously the standout. This girl is just having the time of her life in acting right now. She's one of the world's biggest stars between her appearances in Black Widow, things like Midsommar, now this movie. She's really got some momentum going, and I hope she continues to carry that throughout her career. Harry Styles, as well as her husband, plays off of her quite well, and their chemistry I thought was pretty solid. The guy is showing that he's a multiple threat talent, including singing, dancing, and acting. I think he can do it all, and I haven't quite seen a talent like him since Justin Timberlake. And I actually think he might be a bit of a better actor than Justin Timberlake was, but I'd have to go back and watch some of his other movies in order to confirm that. And additionally, I thought this movie had some really high production value. This isn't Olivia Wilde's first directing film. She has directed a few movies before. She's done a pretty good job from what I understand, so she knows how to direct a movie and make it look great. And this movie really does look great on all accounts. It's got all the makings of a solid movie. It just really falls flat in its writing and execution, which is a shame. But you can tell really good, solid work was thrown into this movie. It's just none of it really came to fruition. And one thing that really surprised me in this movie, I thought it actually had some really disturbing imagery. This movie picks its points actually to be kind of frightening, and it's really effective when it does hit those points. Well, I actually thought to myself, like, I wonder if this is going to be partially a horror movie because of these brief moments of disturbing imagery. Of course, it doesn't take over the movie that much, but it's still really effective in the moments that it was on screen. Like when I saw these obscure faces appear on screen in really rapid succession, I'm like, this is the stuff of nightmares right here. And it was one of the highlights of the movie for me. And I will say, at least in the first act of this movie, before it wears out its welcome, there is some strong tension building at the beginning. The movie does a great job of slowly introducing interesting elements and gets you to ask some questions about what's going on within this community. But the only problem is you can only build tension for so long before it gets old and it feels like the bubble's just never gonna burst. You can only build tension so long before it just gets old and you kind of check out, and that's what happened for me in this movie. When 90% of your movie is tension and the 10% is payoff, it just feels exasperating and exhausting, which will bring me into what I didn't enjoy so much about this movie. I think that this is the worst paced movie I have seen in 2022. I know that is a very harsh critique, but honestly, after sitting through this movie, I feel very strongly about that. As I alluded to earlier, this movie is 90% tension building, 10% payoff, and that last 10% payoff does not make that 90% of it tension building being it worth it. You just spend so much of this runtime waiting and waiting and waiting for this tension bubble to burst, and it never really does in a satisfying manner. I mean, sure, you do get payoff at the end and you finally figure out what the heck is going on, but the ending is just so unsatisfying that it makes the other 90% of the movie feel like a slap in the face and a waste of time. If the movie had crushed its ending, the 90% might have been forgivable. We'll never know, but it just falls flat on its face, and it made the whole experience feel very exhausting. Like, I was so exhausted by the time I left. I seriously thought I was in the theater for at least 3 hours, but it was only 2. And I cannot emphasize that enough. When a movie is only supposed to be 2 hours and it feels almost a third of a way longer than that, that is a problem. And like I said, that 90% of just tension building might be forgivable if there's really solid payoff at the end of the film, but I thought the payoff was quite poor. Like many other TV shows and movies in existence, a lot of the times with movies like this, the payoff payoff at the very end is very important, and it's really hard to stick that landing. And by this film not sticking the landing in a satisfying manner, it really drags down the experience for me as a whole, which is a shame because the trailers to this movie made it look like it was just going to be this crazy psychological thriller. I had really high hopes going into it, and I'm just bummed out, man. And the epitome that I can use to kind of describe this experience is it's all filler but no killer. For the first third of the film, it feels natural. You can feel a steady cadence of tension building, but the problem is the film just kind of keeps building tension, and it keeps building tension. An hour and a half goes by, they're still building tension. There's only a half hour left. Hour and 45 minutes has gone by, they're still building tension. There's 15 minutes left. There's 5 minutes left. Oh, we'll explain what's going on and we'll make it really unsatisfying. It just felt like that they were building tension for the sake of building tension because the writers didn't quite know how to wrap all this up, so they just kept filming things and hoping that it would all come together or until they got a great idea. At least that's what it felt like. I'm sure that's not exactly the case because writing films is a very hard thing to do. I definitely acknowledge that. But it seems like this movie got so obsessed with building tension that it actually forgot to tell a more compelling story in the background. This movie had a lot of potential, it had a lot of things going for it, but it just didn't find a great way to really wrap all of it up and actually reveal to you what's going on, or at least reveal to you what's going on in an interesting manner, or really make the manner at all interesting even in itself. I mean, honestly, the whole idea behind Chris Pine's character as the leader of this community, it's not really explored in sufficient depth, and it really left me asking questions. How did he come into power? How did this community become a thing? The things just seem to appear out of thin air. So friends, in the end, I'm gonna have to give this movie a 5 out of 10. I would say skip it unless you're a huge fan of Florence Pugh and Harry Styles, then fine, go see it. You'll probably enjoy their performances. And like I said, I'm bummed out. I really wanted to enjoy this movie. I did enjoy some aspects of it, but ultimately it was just all filler, no killer, and that's why I'd recommend probably skipping it. Friends, thank you so much for watching another movie review. If you like this or thought it was helpful, I'd be honored if you consider clicking the like button, clicking these end cards up above, or the links down in the description below for reviewing pleasure. Once again, I've been Bryson. Until next time, have a great day, and enjoy the movie if you do end up seeing it. Let me know how it goes.